Ladies and gentlemen, you have both sides available. Please step down.
It's the daily crush. 2.5 million passengers surging through airport security checkpoints. Starting today, TSA officers now offering a friendly warning.
Next year, make sure you have the star on your ID because you have to be in compliance with the Real ID Act. You just won't be accepted next year, okay?
As of October 1st, 2020, you won't be able to fly if your driver's license doesn't have a Real ID star in the top corner. With the clock ticking, state DMV offices are bustling.
I know it's kind of hot outside, but be patient with us. It's cool inside, believe me.
In Virginia, they've even deployed mobile DMVs to handle the load. Everybody required to prove their identity with 4 forms of ID.
I brought my passport, so I have a valid passport. I brought my social security card.
And 2 more, like a current driver's license, a utility bill, payroll stub, birth certificate, or military ID. If you've changed your last name, you'll need proof, a marriage or divorce certificate. It's not just flying, you're also going to need a Real ID to enter a military base or even a government building.
Don't wait till the last minute, and absolutely, when you come in, be prepared.
Passed after 9/11, the Real ID law creates a single national standard for all 50 states.
It doesn't matter when your license expired. By October 2020, it has to be Real ID compliant or you will not be permitted to fly.
13 months till the deadline, enough time to gather your documents. If you don't get a Real ID, you'll need a military ID or passport just to fly inside the U.S. Tom Costello, NBC News, Herndon, Virginia.
Hey, NBC.
Did you know that ID requirements are changing in order to fly domestically? Here's what you need to know so that you don't miss your flight by presenting the wrong ID. Starting October 1st, 2020, you'll need to present a Real ID compliant ID or an acceptable alternative ID to fly within the U.S. Note that not all state and territory issued driver's licenses and IDs are compliant. If your license or ID is not compliant, you will need an alternate form of identification to fly, such as a passport, military ID, or DHS Trusted Traveler Card. So how do you know if your ID is compliant? Generally, compliant IDs will have a star or other security marking as an indicator on the card. If you're not sure if your card is compliant, consult with your state driver's license agency for information on obtaining a compliant ID. For more information on Real ID, visit DHS.gov and search Real ID. For a list of acceptable IDs, information on travel procedures, or what to expect at the checkpoint, visit TSA.gov. Or send a tweet or direct message to @AskTSA. Hashtag check for the star. Or call us at 866-289-9673.
Do you have the Real ID yet? If you're like me, you probably don't. But the thing is, if you want to jump on one of these, a domestic flight, or go to a federal building showing your normal driver's license or your ID after October 1st, 2020, will not cut it. And you say, why worry about this now? We're still 2 years away, right? Well, here's the thing. There was a hearing recently where DMV officials admitted they've switched over 1.5 million folks to the Real ID, but they still have over 23.5 million to go. So keep in mind, you cannot request the Real ID online even when you're up for a renewal. You have to physically go to the DMV office. Here's what you need to take. You need an identity document like a passport or a birth certificate, your social security card, by the way, no photocopies, proof of residency like a utility bill with your name on it, that should do. You can still renew your driver's license online, but it's not the Real ID, and it will say federal limits apply. Also, the Real ID is not mandatory, but the only way you'll be able to get around that is by carrying around your passport. Oh, and one other thing. Passengers under 18 will not need to show the Real ID when accompanied by a companion on a domestic flight. So, at the end of it, it's better to get it now than to worry about it while waiting in a 4-hour line.
Confusion and questions, those are 2 things we've been hearing now that the Real ID bill has passed in Minnesota.
People are wondering if they have to get a Real ID, and if they do, when's the deadline? Also, what if they just renewed their license? WCCO's Jeff Wagner spoke with the lawmaker behind the bill to break it all down.
Before the bill was passed, Minnesota travelers had to prepare to bring their passport with them if they were going to travel around the country in January of 2018. But we don't need to worry about that anymore. So here are the key dates you need to remember. August of 2018. That is when lawmakers expect Real ID to be made available. However, your current driver's license at that time will still allow you to travel across the country until 2020. That is when lawmakers say you will need your passport to travel around the country if you don't have a Real ID.
Over the next 15 months, you'll see a lot of information on the Department of Public Safety's website about license renewal and the options.
Speaking of renewal, what if someone's current license expires just weeks before Real ID starts next August? Will they have to renew their license at full price, then do it again for Real ID? The answer is no.
We've set up for people accommodated where they have a recent renewal, where they will just need to pay a couple of additional dollars, and then they'll be able to have that 5-year renewal process. So you'll be on the same cycle that you were on before, with just minimal additional cost.
Representative Dennis Smith drafted the Real ID bill in Minnesota. He's glad that it gives Minnesotans the option of having a Real ID, non-compliant ID, or the enhanced ID, but there's one specifically he suggests.
The simplest thing is to have a Real ID. I believe that's the simplest thing. It's going to get you access to everything you need to do, to fly, get into any building if you need to, that type of thing.
Jeff Wagner, WCCO 4 News.
Now, the enhanced ID does allow you to fly domestically even after October of 2020. However, it does not grant you access to federal buildings or military bases like the Real ID or the non-compliant ID would. The Real ID will be nearly identical to your current Minnesota driver's license with just a new marking to identify it.